Okay. And I was just reading over your consultation. Seems like general obedience and like leash pulling type stuff.
Yeah, he's a coon hound, and he is a strong one. So he tends to follow his nose, which leads to a lot of pulling and eating things off, like eats a lot of grass
Yeah.
and whatever else he can get his nose around. And then when we see another dog on the walk, he gets very excited. Um, a lot of barking, which might just be the nature of the beast. But he tries to like run towards them.
Okay. What do you walk them on currently? Like a harness or collar? Or-
I use a harness. Do you want me to show it to you?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
But that does make your leash pulling worse.
Is that right?
Hmm.
It, it was recommended by another.
Trainer.
Yeah, but that's well, obedience school. What it, I I don't know if those are two in the same, but um, yeah. What do you recommend using?
I do primarily prong and e-collar, which is usually my next question is like, did you do any research on us and how we train the methods that we use?
No, this was a gift from my parents.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll
Um,
fill you in on all this stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No worries. So here for the consultation, the way it works is like I get a feel for your situation, your dog, if there's previous training, how much you're looking to accomplish with your dog. I'll explain like the different tools, like the harness and all that stuff, the pros and cons of them, and then I take what you've told me, and then I have an idea of like how long it'll take to achieve that,
Hmm.
and then give you your options and like quotes, and then you turn around, you think about it, mull it over, and then if you decide to move forward, you let us know. If you decide not to, then we go our separate ways. Okay.
Right.
Anything else? So we got coonhound leash pulling, foraging, easily excitable, walks on a harness. Any other details that you think are important?
Those are the main ones. I got him in the beginning of March 2020. So the day they told us that we could start working from home, it was supposed to be for 2 days or whatever. So I figured
Yeah.
I'd go and get a dog now that I had the free time.
Yeah.
So he has not
Social.
been um, left alone during the workday at all. So I've gone out a couple times
Okay.
and left him at home. Every time I leave, he does not love it. He thinks he's coming with.
Hmm.
Um, I, I took in the beginning a lot of training. There were a lot of accidents and he ripped up stuff, but not since the early days have I come home to that. I did like the crate training in the beginning. Um, so he hasn't done anything. I just don't know if he like cries or barks, but when I come home, I don't hear him.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's a way to kind of better situate him for a return to normalcy, I guess.
Are you still working from home?
Yeah, until at least September.
Okay. Um,
Um,
are you in an apartment or condo type place?
I'm in an apartment.
Okay. Chances are, if it was bad, like your neighbors would, I would assume, complain.
Right.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten any of that yet. Sometimes I'll give him like a bully stick or some sort of chew right before I head out the door so that he has something to do. I just don't like to put him in the crate because he has some kidney issues. So I want to make sure he has access to water because he drinks a ton of it.
Sure. Okay. How much does he weigh?
55 pounds.
And what's his age?
Probably like 3.5, but I got him from a shelter, so.
Okay, so he's an older guy. And I know he's excitable on leash when he sees dogs, so I'm assuming he's dog social, or
Yeah, so given he's a COVID dog, he hasn't had too much like off leash exposure to other dogs outside of like my brother's dog. I took him to the dog park once and he did start humping,
Mhm.
so I had to leave and I have not gone back.
Okay.
I
Humping.
also,
Go ahead.
I don't know what your guys' perspective on dog parks are, but sometimes they just give me a little anxiety.
Yeah. Most dog trainers aren't fans of dog parks.
Hmm.
I'm one of them. So don't worry about that. But the humping isn't the worst thing. Um, would you say you've ever noticed any kind of tension or like stiffness or behavior that didn't look too good from him, or otherwise he's just like.
Around other dogs?
Mhm.
No. So my brother has a pit bull that's like a small one, and
Mhm.
she does not like other dogs. And my dog wants to be best friends with everyone. So he's not always good at taking cues from other dogs. So she will snap at him a lot because he just wants to play with her. He'll like get down and crouch and bark at her repeatedly. But he hasn't like attacked or anything like that. He's this everything I've seen from the past year, he's really gentle and sweet.
Okay. So because that just makes things easier.
Hmm.
Anything else?
Um, he barks a lot when he's around my brother's dog,
Okay.
um, indoors, and he's got a hound bark, so it's a lot. But at my apartment, he never makes a noise. It's just when he's around this other dog. I'm sure it has to do with excitement.
Yeah.
Um, and then this doesn't bother me, but when he's at my parents' house, he'll sit next to them at the dinner table because they tend to give him a lot of treats,
Okay.
and they don't like that he does that at the dinner table, but it's not nearly a big issue because when I'm at home, he knows that I'm not going to give him uh, anything, so he kind of leaves me be. So it's mainly the leash walking that's the worst thing because I love to go on walks and there's a lot of times where it's not even enjoyable because he just pulls like crazy and can't walk straight and stuff like that. Um, and then he does have um, some anxiety issues. I've noticed from like, I don't know what happened to him in the past, but he has some scars on his face and his ears are nipped. So something happened to him before I got him, and he can sometimes get uh, freaked out easily.
What would he freak out in response to?
So for like the first several months I got him, if you sat down next to him, he would pop up immediately. He does not like skateboarders or like landscapers. He'll like stop walking and try to pull and go the other way. Um, yeah,
Okay. He said he'll try to pull the other way.
yeah,
Okay. So he goes in flight.
and he's not great about turning around when I want to turn around.
All right. Anything else?
That's the main gist of it. I guess one more thing I would like to work on, and maybe this comes with the leash training is if I'm in the car with him, and I want to get out before him so that he doesn't like run out. He's never jumped out of the car, but he is not good at listening and just wants to like get out of the car as soon as possible, just out of like excitement.
Okay, out of excitement. Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Um, all this stuff is pretty standard.
Hmm.
Nothing out the ordinary here. Nothing that I've not worked with. This is like the average dog. So going to the harness, harnesses are made for pulling. So like, horses wear harnesses to pull carriages, huskies wear harnesses to pull sleds. And I know there's these harnesses called no pull harnesses that clip on the front. Um, I mean, that's an oxymoron just because harnesses are meant for pulling. So harnesses promote or provoke the dog to pull more because dogs have this thing, or all animals have this thing called opposition reflex, which means when they feel pressure, they want to go against it. Okay. So when he's pulling forward and you pull him back, you're actually telling him to pull more forward. Okay.
Got it. Yeah, I pull him quite hard and it doesn't seem to, because
Yeah.
sometimes it seems to excite him.
Yeah. It intensifies the dog. Okay. So harnesses aren't great training tools. A lot of people put them on their dog, like for puppies, because they don't want to put any pressure on the throat for puppies. Small dogs, a lot of times, are on harnesses because same reason of the throat. And of course, bigger dogs are on a harness as well, but it gives you the least amount of control because the harness is essentially wrapped around the dog's chest. So then that's where the bulk was his strength is. He just kind of pushes into that. But then also that the fact that it just kind of goes against what you're trying to achieve, which is get him to not pull. Okay.
Hmm.
So I get that all the time. Nothing out the ordinary there. Um, so a lot of this with what you've kind of um, described can seem like a lot of things, but it's really just a couple of things. Okay. So that's the good thing because it's this is if this is what I think it is, it's a pretty straightforward case. Okay. Because the biggest problem you would have would be the separation anxiety. Okay, which is what we were talking about earlier when you leave home for a period of time and coming back. Is with COVID, separation anxiety cases kind of went through the roof because everybody was working from home. So then
Hmm.
when they would leave, the dog would freak out because the dog got so used to being around the owner 24/7 that it became out the norm. So it doesn't really seem like you have that problem. Otherwise, I believe your neighbors would have told you. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's good because that makes everything else a lot easier. So are you familiar with the prong collar or e-collar training tools?
Uh, are, yeah, I think so. Is that like there's several like silver loop cow? Like, is that, do some people refer to that as like a choke chain?
So choke chain is different from a prong collar. Okay, so a choke chain is typically two rings with a chain down the middle.
Hmm.
And you would feed it and would make a loop, and you put the loop over the dog's head, and you would clip your leash to the loop. Okay. So a prong collar is the one that looks like it spikes. It's built.
Yes, yes, yes.
So there's that tool, and then there's the e-collar, which I'll break these down for you. So like the prong collar looks evil, but it was designed to mimic a dog bite. Okay. So dogs, when they correct each other, so like um, let's say your dog was humping another dog, and that dog wanted to stop him. They wouldn't turn around and say, "Hey, please stop doing that." They would turn around, nip and or bite him. Okay, so that doesn't make that dog aggressive. That's their language for like, "Hey, you need to stop what you're doing. That's disrespectful." Okay, so the prong collar is a great tool. It gives the owner a lot more control. The only problem is it takes a bit more technical skill to use effectively for the average dog owner. Okay. Um, I train primarily with e-collar. So e-collar, you probably know or have heard of it referred to as being a shock collar.
Mm.
That term is incorrect. So shock insinuates that you're electrocuting your dog. It's like it's insinuating that you're like tasering your dog, or like kind of like sticking your finger in an outlet type of deal. That's not how it works. Have you ever been to a physical therapist or a chiropractor before?
Physical therapist.
Have you had the stim therapy where they put the circles on your muscle to move the muscle? Okay, so physical therapists have this machine called the TENS unit, and it's a little like kind of a circle probes, and they just stick them to your muscle, and they turn the machine on, and you'll start to move your twitch your muscles. Okay, and the higher the intensity of the TENS unit, the stronger the contraction of the muscle is going to be. So if you ever watched like those TV commercials where it's like work out your abs while you sit at home.
Yeah, I've seen some like behind the scenes footage of athletes on trainer tables with like
Yeah.
if I think I believe I know what you're yeah, it's like the three dots and there's like wires kind of going out of them. Yep, got
So
it.
that's a TENS unit. Okay. So it's electric, but not electricity, is how I try to describe it to people.
Hmm.
So there is a current, but it's a slight current that it's not electrifying. It's just stimulating the muscles. Okay, causing them to twitch. They use a lot in sports therapy. They use a lot in rehabilitation therapy. So like if you haven't used your arm in a long time, you can't just get up and start working out. Like you have to rebuild that strength. So an e-collar is actually the same technology. It's just a muscle stimulator. Okay. So if you were to put the e-collar on your palm and you were to press the button, you would see your thumb move because it's stimulating the muscle of your thumb, but you wouldn't feel anything anywhere else. Okay. So the reason why I train with this tool is because right off the bat, it gives you off leash control. And in my opinion, it's the only tool that can get you as close to a guarantee of off leash control as possible, because it doesn't require you having a leash on your dog. Um, it's very easy to learn. It doesn't require you to learn a ton of skills to train your dog. It's very simple. Um, with COVID and everything, like a lot, so I've had to change how I operate in response to COVID. Because before I used to go home to people, and then when COVID happened, nobody wanted people in their home. So then we started training at the park, but then also people didn't. Everybody wanted to limit like contact, right? So then with e-collar, I'm able to help my clients train their dogs simply through verbal instruction. I don't even have to touch the dog. They just show up, they have their leash, they have their dog, they have their e-collar, and I just teach them through, I just walk them through everything. Okay. And then I give them their homework, and they do and they go and practice for the week, and then I see them the following week. So e-collar gets a bad rap because of the name that a lot of people call it by. So it creates this perception that you're electrocuting your dog when you're not doing that at all. And the reason why it's effective is because dogs are physical animals. Dogs don't use treats to reward each other. Dogs actually don't even praise good behavior. Dogs simply correct behavior they don't want. Okay. So, like for a child, a human child, if I did something good growing up, my mom would praise me. I might get like a party with my friends, or I might go to the store and get a toy or whatever, right? Dogs don't do that. But also, if I did something wrong, I would get spanked. I was raised old school, and that was or grounded to deter me from performing certain behaviors. That's
Hmm.
what dogs primarily do with each other. Okay,
Hmm.
so like if your guy got out of line with another dog, you would see them, like I said earlier, nip and bite him, not because they're aggressive, but because they're saying like, hey, don't do that. And aversives are meant to stop or deter behaviors. So like for humans, if you run a red light, you might get a red light ticket. That ticket's meant to deter you from doing that again. But for dogs, like that's not something that they understand. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So prong, because it's meant to mimic a dog bite, allows you to correct your dog like another dog would. The problem is it takes a bit of technical skill. Uh, if your dog is really physically tough, you even if you correct them and you're able to correct them well, he may not even respond to it. Um, or maybe the intensity of what he's doing and the intensity of which you're correcting, if it's not on the same level, it won't do anything. um, and it's just a bit more complicated for the average dog owner to pick up on. So Prong Collar is a great tool if you know how to use it as like a trainer would. It's not a tool. It's not my primary tool. I use it more so. Like I had a young lady who was like 90, 100 pounds, and she had a 150-pound Great Dane who was also dog reactive. So when he would see a dog, he would lunge and bark, and he would literally drag her across the street.
Yeah.
So for her, she had to do prong and e-collar because she lived in Bucktown. So she could like walk around the corner and see a dog and be surprised, and she needed to be able to get that control immediately. So we did prong because it gave her more physical leverage, and we did e-collar because it allowed her to correct her dog's behavior, and it wasn't dependent on her physical strengths. Okay,
Hmm.
so with remote collar, everything's at the press of a button. Um, Mine has 127 levels that go up in increments of one. Older model e-collars or cheaper brand e-collars will have only 5 to 10 levels. So 10 and 127 would be the same. I just happen to have 117 more divisions. Okay. So people think of it, they're like, oh wow, 127, you have that much more. I'm like, no, it's the same. It's just I can really fine tune it. So on a cheaper or older type collar, if you're on 4, your dog could be yelping, but then 3, your dog's not listening because the jump between each level is so drastic. Okay.
Got it.
But whereas with my collar, I could be 40, 60, 50, 49, 51. I can really fine tune it to the dog in the situation.
Hmm.
The other thing is because dogs are physical animals, the e-collar, of course, is a physical, is a feeling, it's a physical sensation that the dog picks up on. So I like to call it like a bite on the button, and you're able to talk your dog's language at the press of a button. Okay. What dictates the level of the collar is your dog. The size, so you guys 55 years old, the size, the breed, I'm not years old, pounds. If he was 55 years old, he'd probably be gone. Uh, but his breed, his size, his age, his temperament, none of that stuff factors in when it comes to the perception of the e-collar.
Hmm.
So, like, I have 2 clients right now with Aussie Doodles, and both dogs are approximately like 15 to 16 pounds. Okay. They're small dogs. One dog is a female. Um, Her number is 80 out of 127. So 80. Okay. The other dog, his number is 20 out of 127. Okay. So the one on 80, she's not yelping, she's not in any physical pain. That's just the number that she needs in order to take her owner's commands seriously. Otherwise, she just doesn't do them. The other dog's a lot more sensitive, so his number is only 20 out of 127, and that's all he needs to do his thing, right? So someone might look at them and go like, "Oh, that's a 16-pound dog. They must be super low in the collar." And I go, "No." I'm like, "It doesn't depend. It's not about size, age, breed, temperament. None of that stuff matters. It's about the dog's personal sensitivity to the collar." Okay. So when working with your dog, his number could be 15 and he's perfect, or his number could be 85 and he's perfect. Okay. Um, Question?
No.
So I help you figure all that stuff out. Okay. I coach you through it. There's a method to it. We don't just come in at 100 and then, just press the button. We start low, we work our way up, which is the same thing that they do for humans when they use the TENS unit for physical therapy. And I help you find what we call the dog's working number, which means what's going to get your dog to walk well on a leash no matter what the environment is. Okay. So I don't care if you're at Oz Park where it's really busy, or if you're in Home Depot, or if you're walking through the neighborhood, or if you're walking to like the park to let them off leash. Uh, the number is going to change according to the environment. Okay. So if there's like a ton of distractions around, your number could be 65, but he's not yelping, but he's listening to everything you're telling him. And then in a quiet neighborhood, his number could be 25 for him to be really obedient.
So who determines the number?
Your dog. Okay.
It's not.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So, like, let's say you've done the training, right? And you're walking with him and you come back and you're like, hey, Jesse, I was walking my dog and he kept pulling, right? And you're like, and I kept tapping him at 25. And I would say, like, well, if 25 wasn't working, why wouldn't we just go up higher? right? Because he's telling you, if he's ignoring you at 25, he's telling you that's not enough for me right now, right? So it's a middle ground between I don't want the dog yelping, but I want the dog listening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you stay at 25 forever, in some settings he might be okay because it's quiet, but in other settings he won't listen because there's too much going on. Okay.
Okay.
And people often ask, like, well, shouldn't the dog learn better? And I go, that's not how dogs work. Dogs are very primitive creatures. They're very black and white. They're not like humans, where someone can like wake up and feel bad about something they said to their friend and say like, you know what, I'm not gonna say that ever again to another person. You know, dogs go by what you allow and what you don't allow. And that's reinforced through the collar. So if he's like, well, dad only goes to 25, I don't need to listen to him. He needs more. You're not going to get any response for your dog. Okay. So he dictates it because if I have it at 35 and he's perfect, then we're at 35. But if things start to happen and he's not listening at 35, then I find the number where he would listen. And then over the course of time, it becomes like you don't even think about it anymore. You'll just like go to the park and you might know already like, oh, my dog needs 60 at the park. And when you're walking the neighborhood, you might say like, oh, he just needs 25 through the neighborhood. And
And
just
is this collar just for walks, or is it like their everyday collar, or?
right. So you would have it when you need it. Okay. So like, let's say inside the house, he's a great dog. No issues. People come over, no problem. He's nice. He's friendly. You don't need it. But then when you're going to go on a walk and there's going to be other dogs or other people, other scents, food on the ground, you have the collar on. If you're going to take them to the park and let them run around off leash, you have the collar on because it gives you control in an uncontrolled environment. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, or like, let's say he jumps on people and you want to stop jumping on people when they come over, because it's a controlled environment, but then you have a stimuli coming in, and that's what triggers everything. Is then like, okay, my guest is coming at 5:30. At 5 o'clock, I have the collar on, and at 5:30, when my guest is over, I can stop the jumping, and then once he's calmed down, you can remove the collar. You don't need it anymore.
And is it mandatory to use the e-collar, or do I decide if we use the e-collar or the prong
I
collar?
only
How does
train
that work?
one way, and that's what
What's that?
I said. I only train one way.
And that's the e-collar.
Correct. The prong collar. So my rate is the same. And let's say you did training with the prong collar, you would get nowhere near what you would get with an e-collar, and that's what my prices are based off of. So then it's like you invest $1,000 and you walk out. Like, so the prong collar, the biggest problem would be recall, come when called. Is as soon as you take the leash off the prong collar, he's gonna know you no longer have connection. You're not gonna have any reliability there. Okay, and there's no means of making him come back should he decide to run away. So with the remote collar, it doesn't matter leash or no leash, or if he decides to run away or not, I have a means of getting control back from my dog. So I train strictly with remote collar because I have it's the most consistent tool. I know if I'm working with the owner and they're doing their homework, I know what we're going to get done. What holds people back the most is they don't like the e-collar, so they don't use it that much, or they don't go to the level needed to make their dog listen. So it's not the training that's not working, it's that the owner doesn't want to follow through.
I can see that.
Yeah. And because they feel like they're hurting their dog. But like,
Yeah.
can you see that?
Yeah.
That's a dog bite. Okay. This is a dog that didn't want to go in the kennel. That was it. I tried to put him in the kennel. He's like, I'm not going in there. He just looked up and he bit my hand. That was it. So he in that context, he didn't have a conversation with me. He didn't say like, hey man, like this is what making me uncomfortable. Don't put me in there. As a dog, he just goes, hey, I don't like what you're doing and I'm not going to go in there, and just bit me. So that's dog is there, and that dog's not aggressive, by the way. He comes to daycare. He was here. He's here today. He's come for boarding. He had just never been put in the kennel before. So then he was freaking out and he's like, hey man, I'm not going in there. And he just bit me. There was no conversation. So dogs are physical animals, and when they're gonna, and it's regardless if they know you or not, if they decide, hey, I'm gonna use physicality to reinforce something, they do, you know. And I get a lot of owners, and I know your dog doesn't have this issue, but I get dogs that bite their own owners because they don't want to do what the owners tell them, or they don't like the owner coming near their food when they're eating in the kitchen, or maybe when the owner's trying to approach their kennel to let them out, they don't want the owner near their kennel. you know, we're not being mean. We're just talking the language of dogs. Because if you try to do food, food is the lowest ceiling in terms of all the methods of training, which is positive reinforcement based training. The issue with it is if you're outside with your dog and the environment is more rewarding than what you have in your hand, your dog is going to opt to do that stuff, right? But also, if you tell your dog to do something and they don't, the consequence is they don't get the treat, which is not a consequence to a dog. Does that make sense? Questions about any of this stuff?
Yeah, do you have links to these products that I could do like some research on?
Yeah. So for your guy, uh, and Maria can send you this information as well. The model that I would recommend from the brand that I use is Dogtra, Dogtra. Um, it's the best collar, in my opinion, or best. They're the best brand, but also that's the best collar. But it's meant for dogs, bigger dogs. Um, it's a fully waterproof system, both the transmitter and the receiver. You can go swimming in it. You could be in a pool with a remote in your hand. Nothing's going to happen. It's a 1 mile range, so plenty of range for the average family pet. I've been using this brand for about 10 years, if not longer now.
And what does the range mean?
So like this tool was designed for hunting dogs. So if they're out in the field and they send their dog to like go pick up a bird that they shot or whatever, they would get as much as a 1 mile distance. So that if they press the button, they would have contact for up to 1 mile away.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So do I take the thing with me?
Which the remote?
Yeah.
Correct, because that allows you to. That's what allows you to control your dog at the press of a button.
Got it. Got it.
Yep. Other questions?
No. Well, yeah, so just can you clarify you aren't doing parks right now? It's all virtual?
No, I do parks.
Oh, you do parks.
Yeah, no, I'm doing in person. I've been doing in person for a while now. Yeah, so right now we're in the middle of transitioning. So I meet all my clients at Oz Park. Are you familiar with Oz Park?
Yes, I used to live by there.
Okay, so Oz Park is crazy busy. Dogs, people, strollers, roll bears, baseball games, bar mitzvah parties, jazz band. There's like a bunch of stuff going on. We train over there. So we're in the middle of all this distraction, and you're able to practice and learn in that environment so that it's applicable for you when you go home. So we don't practice in an empty room. We go out to the park and stuff. Some of my clients are still meeting me at my facility because of the winter and the springtime where it's still kind of raining and stuff. But we're starting to transition to Oz Park. If there were to be inclement weather, like once I'm officially there, I'm super booked right now. Is that I can't push back. I just tell my clients to meet me at my facility. It doesn't mean anything in the sense of what you would accomplish with your training, because if we're in my facility, which is a controlled context, your dog's number would most likely be lower. But then all that means is when you go to your neighborhood or to the park to practice, you would just find that working number for that environment, which I teach you all that stuff. So it's easy for you to go out and like just kind of figure it all out. But for the most part, we try to as much as possible train outside at the park.
So you're not at Palmer Square Park anymore?
So the reason why we have to isolate one park is it makes it easy. Otherwise, we're going back and forth. Now, if you want to go to Palmer Square Park, I can put you in contact with my other trainer, Enrique.
Yeah, I live in Logan Square.
Sure.
Got it.
Yeah. Other questions?
And is everything that you said verbatim with Enrique?
In terms of like the process and everything? Yep. Your case is straightforward. Your case is straightforward. So like the foraging, let's say you take your dog off leash, right? And he's 20 feet away and he wants to eat goose poop. You have the means of stopping him from eating goose poop. Okay. Now, whether or not you can stop him from eating goose poop permanently is a different thing. Okay, because every dog is different, and it also depends on how far you're willing to go. So, like to give you an example, I had a client whose dog used to love digging in the garbage, and they started low, they worked their way up all the way to the point of 127 continuous, which is the harshest consequence you can give. Okay, and he would still dig in the garbage. And they said, "Hey, Jesse, we give our dog the harshest consequence. Why is he still digging in the garbage?" And I said, "Because it's worth it to him. He's willing to take the harsh correction to spend 1 to 2 seconds in the garbage." Okay. So what they ended up doing, how we fixed that was we started doing 127 for him even looking at the garbage. And that's how we fixed that problem. But they were only able to fix that problem because they were willing to go to that extent. Right? So like most people would be like, "Oh, Jesse, but he's just digging in the garbage." I'm like, I understand that, but one, he could eat something toxic, and that would just cost him his life. Or two, then you're constantly having your dog. You're never fixing anything. Like you're just constantly correcting your dog, and they never stop. And ideally, we would want the dog to stop the behavior, but then also not perform it again. Right? So that I don't know how that's going to work because it depends on your dog and his interest or his desire to forage. Also, how far are you willing to go in terms of correcting him to deter him from foraging? Okay. So the foraging is actually technically easy to address. The leash pulling is usually like a class or two classes to address. The humping is also simple because let's say you take him to socialize with a friend's dog and he starts to hump, you can correct him with the e-collar. So you're essentially biting him before the dog bites him. Does that make sense?
It does.
Other questions?
Nope.
So in terms of length of time and cost, I would put you probably around the 6-class range because I don't teach it or we don't cover anything that you're not going to use. So in the 6-class program, 2 classes are for the leash pulling, 2 classes are for recall, which is come when called. So those are the 2 most important commands. Classes 5 and 6, like 5 could be on correcting behavior, like the foraging, the humping, the begging, the frustration barking. We can also help you address the trying to run away from skateboarders. That one,
I don't know if that would be worth our time.
Well, the last thing you would want is to get caught off guard. He tries to run. He pulls the leash out of your hand, and then you got to chase your dog.
Yeah, it's happened before.
Yeah. So that actually isn't the hardest thing to address. It's actually pretty straightforward. So I would say 2 classes on leash walking, 2 classes on recall. And then we got 2 classes for the behavioral stuff, including the skateboarder stuff, which should be pretty straightforward. Um, if you're doing your homework and you're doing what we're telling you to do, we may even be able to cover, excuse me, stationary control, which is where you tell your dog to go somewhere and not move for a period of time. So like you could go to a restaurant with him and he'll lay on a dog bed or like a towel or something. Or like maybe if he's over at your parents' house and they don't want him begging, they can send him away and he'll go over there while they're eating dinner. He's not sitting there begging for food. Um, but definitely the leash walking, the recall, and the behavioral stuff with the skateboarder kind of runaway thing. Uh, Pretty confident you'd be able to get all that stuff within the 6 classes.
And to confirm, this would all be at Palmer Square Park, not your facility.
Yeah, if you want to meet at Palmer, that's fine. I'd most likely be with Enrique though.
Yeah, yeah. I just don't have a car.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. I just have to think about the e-collar.
Yeah. So, what I suggest you do is, go on Google and do your research. Dog Trust is the best e-collar brand in my opinion. If you want to get a feel for what the training looks like, you can go to my website, canineperspective.com, and canine is spelled out, CANINE, and you'll see videos. You'll click on a video, it'll take you to my YouTube channel, and you can search lesson one. Okay. So lesson one, no one knows what they're doing. The dog doesn't know what's going on. The owner doesn't know what's going on. The only one who knows is us, right? And you can kind of get a feel for what the process looks like, and it'll help you kind of get a better understanding of what the e-collar is. Okay. If you see any horror stories about e-collars on the internet, chances are it's somebody that bought like a $20 to $30 e-collar and it malfunctioned, or they left the collar on for too long, which causes pressure sores. And it's from the probes pushing into the neck for a long period of time. And so like people get bed sores. That's why they have to rotate people in the hospital every so often. But I've been using these for 10 years. The most common thing that I see is that the owner will forget to rotate the collar, so then the dog will get a couple of pressure sores, which will heal up, fur grows back, no big deal. But definitely, I always encourage everybody to do the research. We have plenty of footage on our YouTube channel to give you an idea of what it looks like, and then you decide what you want to do from there.
And to confirm, it's that or bust.
Correct. Like
Uh,
the rate that it's $1,000 for 6 hours of our time, right? Is if you did prong collar, you're gonna walk out of it going, that's not worth $1,000. Okay.
But you guys do prong collar.
We incorporate it. I don't use it as a primary training tool anymore.
Okay,
Yeah,
so hypothetically, if I'm uncomfortable with the e-collar, there would be no.
no option.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and there's plenty of trainers that do prong and they do food only and all that stuff, or food and prong. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and
Oh yeah, I don't doubt your methods. It's just my comfort level doing it.
no, for
So
sure.
it's a me, not a you.
Yeah, no.
I 100% could see it working. I just have to figure out if it's something that I'm comfortable following through with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we do this. We want to make sure that you're aware, you're educated and all that stuff. Because I'm overbooked as it is. I'm booked into June, July now.
Yeah, you
Uh,
guys were in the New York Times, right?
yeah, Wes.
That
Now the
probably
puppies we
helps.
train with food. Puppies are puppies, but all our dogs over 6 months, I want it's the best training, the best method available in my opinion. So, do your research. There are plenty of other people that do prong and all that stuff. I just know that once you take the leash off, you're not going to have control, and that's where I don't want anybody not having that. So
No, that makes sense. And I'm sure the e-collar is more effective. Like I said, it's just my comfort level with it.
for sure,
And I got to think about it.
yeah. So if you have any other questions, let us know.
Hmm.
Otherwise, when you're ready, do your research. There's no rush. You can shoot Maria an email, if you decide to move forward, and then she'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you. So, and your name was Enrique, correct?
No, I'm Jesse.
Jesse. All right,
Yeah,
the
I'm
other.
I'm the owner. Yeah, I'm the owner.
Yeah, got
Enrique
it.
is my he's my facility training manager. So he handles all my like easier cases, or like if people want to work in a different area like Palmer Square, he's the one that handles all that. And your case is one that he's more than capable of handling. So
Great. Um, cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to run through all this. It was very informative.
all right, we appreciate it. So if you need anything else, you let us know. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Take care.